Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. Hey gang, thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a more solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photographs. Every week I ask this. Every week, some of you help me, some of you don't. So come on, do me a solid. Before we get started, please spread the word. Take a second, tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest way to get the word out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste the link in the chat window here for you. There you go. Or you can go ahead and you can click that share button. It's like right down here. Go ahead and hit that button. Let people know. And of course, as always, I love to know where people are checking in from. We've got people in here from all over the world. So please check in, leave a comment, let me know you're here. I know Mark is here from Canada, Deborah's here, Adam's here from Illinois. I've got, let's see, Spinning Wheels Photography from Arizona, D-Max here in Texas, Steve's in Michigan, I got Mike in Ohio, Daryl's in Fort Worth, we got Jim Betts in beautiful downtown Nebraska. But seriously, we got people here from all over the place. Carl's here, April's here, on time. Yeah, go April. All right, so seriously, thank you guys for checking in tonight, spending another Wednesday evening with me, or at least part of it. Start posting those questions. I have very few questions lined up. So I've got a little bit of news to share with you tonight, but you know, it's either like give me some questions or topics, or I may have to spend the next 90 minutes talking about the Olympus firmware upgrades and the new teleconverter, which I know some of you are excited to hear about, but I know the rest of you really don't care, right? So yeah, let's get some questions and topics in there so that we can help some people solve some problems and improve their photography. So a couple of things. I already tipped my hand on one. There was a big Olympus announcement last night at 2 a.m., which means that like I woke up today and it was like getting 2 new cameras. And I'm not kidding, like new cameras. No, they didn't send me any new cameras. I didn't get any packages. But Olympus, historically, for a long time now, provides firmware upgrades that add new features. And I told you guys, when the EM1X came out, if you watched my video, which, you know, a lot of people were mad at me because I didn't do a review. Look, why would I do a review? I'm an Olympus visionary, so like I'm going to say something bad about it? Come on. So my video was an introduction. But what I did say at the end of the video, that what excited me the most about that camera was the fact that the technology in it would filter its way into other cameras, other Olympus cameras, and other cameras from other brands, because it forces other companies to have to up their game. And indeed, Olympus did me proud with this one, because now they took some of the features from the EM1X and they've added them for free at no additional cost into the EM1 Mark II. So already in that short period of time, we're seeing a lot of those features filtered down, new stuff coming. So we'll talk about that in a minute, I promise. But I have to geek out for a minute. So I have 2 stories that I want to share with you about this past week. One is something that happened in the news that some of you may have seen already. And the other one is actually about an experience that I had on Monday, which really didn't have a lot to do with photography, but it had everything to do with people and the things that excite me so much about TogChat. So we'll get to that one in a minute. But for those of you that have some background in newspaper photojournalism like I do, or who just find it interesting, or for that matter, you know, if you just watch the news a lot like I do for sure, this week we had something very interesting happening. So I've told this story before about how I started my career as a newspaper photographer, and as a 20-year-old kid, I was determined that I was going to win a Pulitzer Prize by the time I was 25. And you know, the reality of it is you don't get to just decide you're going to go win a Pulitzer. It doesn't quite work that way, not even close. And you know, at this point in my career, it is amazing that on a regular basis I get to interact with Pulitzer Prize winners. I mean, 2 of my fellow Olympus visionaries, Larry Price, Jay Dickman. These guys are incredible. Larry has won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. Jay has 1, and of course he shoots for National Geographic. So this week, though, what was very interesting is if you follow the news, and especially if you watch the photo blogs like Petapixel and those, in all likelihood, there was the next Pulitzer Prize in Spot News image created this past week. And I say in all likelihood because certainly it's only June. So there's a very good possibility that something else could happen in the world between now and December 31st that could knock this picture out of the box. But what's really cool about this is it was shot by a photographer who is a previous Pulitzer Prize winner. It is indeed Pulitzer Prize worthy, but we actually have video of the event taking place that shows the photographer and shows the risks that the photographer took. Now, for copyright purposes, all that good stuff, I can't show you the video, but I'm going to share you the link and I'm going to show you the web page here. So I'm going to bring up Petapixel. So this happened in Dallas this past week, okay? This was at, I believe, one of the federal buildings or the federal courthouse, one of those. And whoops, let me get the URL here so that I can share this with you guys. Sorry, I thought I had it and that was not it. Here we go. So if you want to go check this article out and watch the two little video clips, feel free, leave me on in the background so you can listen, okay? The first video, the one at the top of the page, is an interview with the photographer, Tom Fox, who, as I mentioned, he is also a previous Pulitzer Prize winner, okay? So this could potentially be his second, and you know, I don't mean to jinx him, but this is amazing. So the picture that you're seeing on the screen here, and let me see, there's another view of it. This is the primary picture. Now, keep in mind, he has other pictures to this series, but you know, this is basically staring straight into the eyes of a gunman who is, you know, gone at a federal building for the purpose of, you know, mass injuries. And as it turned out, Tom was outside the federal building waiting on another assignment. When the shooting started, this guy came out of the building and he reacted the way any great newspaper photojournalist should. And instead of running, he took pictures. Now, the video that I would encourage you to watch, and I'm not going to play it, again, copyright rules here, but you can see in this picture, if you look, these are the pillars that you see right here in this shot. Here's the gunman walking in this direction before he winds up crossing the street. This little blip right here behind this pillar is the photographer that had just taken the picture of him. And fortunately, moments after the gunman gets to this point in his walk, he is either distracted or whatever, but he turns and he crosses the street and goes into the parking lot where the police eventually shot the guy and took him down and the whole bit. But there's audio, you hear the gunshots, it's crazy. And so, you know, to think that he was, here's a good close-up of it. To think that he was that close, got that image, lived to talk about it, like, wow. So, you know, obviously I don't do newspaper photography anymore. Haven't done it in decades, but it's kind of one of those things that when you've done it, you forever have an incredible appreciation for it and what it's involved, because as you guys have heard me mention many, many times, doing newspaper work, probably the coolest thing about it is the idea that you are essentially walking into other people's lives or other people's worlds for 15 minutes at a time, figuratively, but you are experiencing the highest of highs and the lowest of lows with your camera. So it's not only your personal experiences in these situations, but the images that you're able to record, which are usually full of extreme emotions. So just incredible story. It's worth watching the video. Just to hear how Tom talks about his experience, how he reacted, etc. And of course, you know, because he is as good as he is, he's rather matter of fact about it, but nonetheless, still, like, really, really awesome shot, awesome scenario. So the other little story that I wanted to share with you guys before we get to the big announcement, which was the firmware upgrades. Every week when we start, I ask you guys to check in and let me know where you're from. And of course, if you ever pay close attention to the chat windows while you're here and while you're watching, we have people here. I mean, even tonight, there's people here from Italy, Berlin, Germany, New Zealand, all over the place, Greece. It is so cool to me that the internet makes the world so small. So a few weeks ago, the school that my wife teaches at, Muhlenberg College in Allentown, they reached out to me. There's Wendy from New Zealand. Check that out. So that's cool. So they reached out to me and said, hey, we would like you to come in and speak with a group of young entrepreneurs that are coming here from Bahrain. Now, in fact, some of them may be watching tonight because they've just learned about me. So if any of my young entrepreneurs that I got to meet this week are watching, it's great to see you. They were here on some type of exchange program that was partly put together by the UN. And these are all people who own small businesses in Bahrain. And the country of Bahrain, for those of you that don't know, they are a country that is highly dependent on oil. And so their government is working to create new sustainable, revenue streams, businesses, et cetera, so that they are not eternally dependent on oil, right? Because obviously that's a resource that any number of things can happen to. So they're putting a lot of effort and money into these young entrepreneurs to build these businesses. So my task was to talk to them about two things. One, just about creativity. My job was to be kind of a cheerleader for creativity. My wife spoke with them about some of the science behind creativity, but my job was to be a little bit of the cheerleader and talk about a lot of things that I talk to photographers about. I had them do the famous egg assignment. If you haven't watched my egg video, they had a lot of fun with that. But what was so cool about the experience for me, and this is the thing that I just wanted to share, because I think it's important, and we don't understand this enough because in our day-to-day lives, we don't always have these experiences. So out of respect, before I went to school on Monday to do this talk, I did a lot of Googling and research on Bahrain because I honestly didn't even know where Bahrain was at first. So basically, it's this very, very small country that's bordered on Saudi Arabia. It's got a population of about 1.6 million people, which means that the entire country is smaller than a lot of American cities, okay? It is predominantly Muslim, obviously. There are two predominant factions within the Muslim religion that are there, and it's a very traditional country. And Google told me a couple of things about Bahrainian business people. One, very traditional. Two, very risk averse. A lot of very strong guidelines in terms of men, would shake hands, for instance, but a man should not shake hands with a woman. Touching, very common amongst men, or very common amongst women, but not cross-sex. Older, more traditional women keep their heads covered. Younger women may or may not. And I did the whole breakdown. I wanted to get it right. I even did studying about their business practices in terms of how they handle business cards. Here in the US, we get business cards made, and it's like you give somebody a business card and it gets like shoved in the back pocket, right? Nobody cares. Well, in the rest of the world, business cards there's a whole language around business cards. So again, for us Americans, we kind of live in this little, cave, really, even though it's a massive country, but we have our way of doing things and we don't consider the rest of the world that much. At least I didn't always do that growing up because I had no reason to. So, but in a lot of countries, especially in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, business cards, literally there's a language and an etiquette that goes with them. So for instance, when somebody hands you a business card, you don't just take the business card and stick it in your pocket. You make it a point to read the business card, read the card, like take your time and read the card. If you were dealing in Japanese customs, you do that with two hands. You hold that card and you look at it and appreciate it. And you do not shove it in a case or put it in a book. You hold on to it in a prominent position. And then if you sit down to talk to these people, you set it on the table in front of you. You don't cover it with a notepad or a book or, again, stick it in a pocket. And if there happen to be 2 or 3 people that you're meeting and they all give you business cards, whoever is the senior person, whether it's senior by age or senior by job position or title, you would set the cards up with theirs being at the top of the pile and the others below it on the list. So lots of little customs. So I did all this research because I didn't want to offend anybody. I wanted to be, very appropriate and respectful, because I think that's important, okay? So my time comes, my wife and I show up, and one of the other things we read about is that frequently they don't stick to schedules in business practices in general. So in other words, we kind of expected they might be running late. So sure enough, they came back from lunch about 20 minutes late for our talk to start. Not a sign of disrespect. We also found out, in their defense, They left for lunch late, so lunch ran late, etc. But they came back, and we, started our talk. And my wife did a little bit of the setup, and then I was doing my creativity stuff and kind of setting up the egg assignment. And I was going out of my way, which I'm sure, since you guys watch me, you can imagine like this was very uncomfortable for Joe. I'm going out of my way to be very careful, choosing my words, watching what I say. I was very surprised and caught off guard when they all came in from lunch. They all got on a line and walked up to us and introduced themselves and shook our hands, even the women. So already, like, one of the things that I had read about was not appropriate until we got to the last woman in the group. And I reached out my hand because by that time I had shook everybody's hand. I reached out my hand and realized she had her hands pressed at her side. So, I apologized and said hello, and that was it. So they do the egg assignment, and clearly, as they were doing the egg assignment, they did it in groups. We had 5 groups. They were having a lot of fun, and they were doing some amazingly creative stuff. And after the assignment, and after they turned in their photos, I asked each group to pick a representative to describe their approach and what they did and why. The very first group, the guy stands up, and at that point, I had this revelation of how wonderful is it that really anywhere you go in the world, people are still people and we're all the same. As soon as he stood up and started telling the story, he basically started trash talking the other groups competitively. Everything I had read about how, Bahrainians would behave went right out the window. And I realized that what I was reading on Google was much, much more traditional. These folks were a blast. And the great part is in talking to them about their businesses, it was fascinating to realize that even with some of the cultural differences, their struggles in building a business, in building a social media following, and all those things, no different than our struggles. None whatsoever. Certainly, there's little regional nuances and even some religious nuances in some cases, but no different than we have struggles. It's the same stuff. So the approaches that I take to marketing and that were actually very, very helpful for them. And obviously, none of this has anything to do with photography. But what it does have to do with this, guys, you always hear me in my sign-off say that photography is not a competition, it's a passion to be shared. Just, enjoy the photography. That's what I hope all of you will take away from it. And that's why I appreciate you listening to me tell that story, because it was just one more experience for me similar to TogChat, where it's people with similar interests, people with similar challenges, actually being able to get along regardless of religion, regardless of politics, and to help each other and to care about each other. It's a great thing. I wish that I had led my whole life being of that thought process. For me, I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, it took a lot of growing up to get to that point and to realize that the world is much bigger than what's in front of me. So, Joe Newman, I see that you said here that you've been to Bahrain. I would love to go now. I've seen so many pictures now and learned so much about it. I would love to go visit. But so anyway, for all you Olympus users, well, if you're an Olympus user, I would have to say if you haven't heard about this unless you've been like, under a rock, okay? But for the rest of you, you may care or may not care. But once again, let me tell you, just like I said in my review of the EM1X, the fact that this is happening is actually great news for all camera brands and all photographers. So Olympus released a couple of things this morning at 2 a.m. First, they released the much anticipated teleconverter, the MC20, which is a 2X teleconverter, okay? More about that in a minute. What I think is actually more exciting, obviously for the nature and wildlife people and maybe even some sports people, that teleconverter is like really, really big deal. It's available for pre-order now. I think they're gonna ship the beginning of July, but yeah, so like you can get out there and you can order them. But here's the exciting part. For me, they released firmware upgrades for the EM1X and also for the EM1 Mark II. For the EM1X, some tweaks, basically, okay? Some new functions that are in the Olympus Workspace software that now tie into the camera, some focus stacking tweaks, a feature called light and composite added, which I'll tell you about some of that stuff. And don't worry, gang, I'm not going to spend half an hour on the Olympus stuff, but I do want to share this information because we do have a lot of Olympus users here that follow me since I'm a visionary. And this is really cool stuff. So I want to make sure that these people are aware of it, and I want to make sure they go and get these upgrades. For the EM1 Mark II, though, this is like Christmas, because like if you're an EM1 Mark II owner, it's like you woke up and got a brand new camera today. Like literally, download the software and you got a brand new camera. They've taken quite a few of the features, not all, because some of them require the dual processors, right? But they've taken quite a few of the features from the EM1X, and they have indeed added them via software and firmware into the EM1 Mark II. They have upgraded dramatically the autofocus performance, which the autofocus performance in the EM1 Mark II was amazing. I've said that since I've owned that camera, since I became an Olympus user. So the fact that they were able to speed it up even more, make it even more accurate, also add the CF center priority status to it, like incredible, okay? So they've taken that from the EM1X, added it to the EM1 Mark II. Also, they now have a 25-point focus group that has been added to the focus targets, which again gives you even more versatility than what you have. They don't have the customizable points yet like the EM1X, but they've added the 25-point group, which a lot of people had requested. They've changed the low light limit by giving you, if you're using one of the f1.2 lenses, giving you an ISO 100 equivalent, which basically gives you like a -6 EV, which is like amazing. What that also does is it improves the camera's ability to focus in really low light or really low contrast situations, which is huge because it seems that no matter how hard we try these days, photographers want to take pictures with no light. Go figure, right? So low ISO processing with a priority for detail. So they call it detail priority. That has been added so that you get higher resolution when you're shooting it at the lower ISOs, which means they can do even more noise reduction and still retain the detail with lower ISO settings. So you don't have to push your ISO up quite as high. It's basically gained approximately 1/3 of a stop on the high sensitivity end also, which is really cool. There's a new raw update feature, or excuse me, a raw edit feature, which I'll talk about that in a second because that also applies to the EM1X. And they added a bunch of other stuff. So, you know, and it's funny because on the bullet point list that I'm looking at, these are all like by the ways, but some of these are amazing. They're not by the way. So the anti-flicker feature that the EM1X has, they have added this to the EM1 Mark II. Really, really big one if you shoot video. OM logged 400, which is basically raw video files. What that does for you now, if you're a user like me who has an EM1X and has the EM1 Mark II, and I want to shoot video with both, I can shoot raw or log with both of them and match them. So that way, when you see the final product, you can't tell which camera it came out of because you're shooting a log file. So you're able to have much, much more range to work within the shadows and the highlights without blowing stuff out. So it's so much more creative control over your video capabilities. They added frame rate priority and the live boost, which really helps out in darker situations, like if you're doing the night sky type shots, and just really improves the overall experience. That's not an image improvement, but that's an experience improvement working with the LCDs. And the viewfinder, Mike Osinski, yes, I am talking about your new camera update, right? Setting changes for playback while the images are being saved to the card. So you can shoot a burst, and while they're still saving, you can start playback already from the buffer to be able to see what your images look like. They added a new art filter, which, you know, that's cool. I don't really care about the art filters. We mentioned about the ISO 100. On the EM1X, again, this USB raw edit, I'll explain to you what that is in a minute, okay? Also tied in with the Olympus Workspace, they added a new focus stacking feature in Olympus Workspace that is allowing you to manage this all in the software coming right out of the camera instead of having to go to third-party softwares like you used to do. Light and composite, which allows you to create images similar to live composite, and you can also do darken composite. But the USB function, this is really cool. So when I first read about this, I was like, why would you want to do this? But it turns out it's really pretty neat. So what I want to do here really quick, actually, let me open this up. I'm going to switch over to the Get Olympus website and show you guys this. So for those of you that aren't Olympus users, again, I'm going to make this quick. We're almost done, right? So the Olympus Workspace software, just like Nikon has software, Canon has software, you know, everybody's got their own software thing. This is the Olympus software. It's actually pretty freaking impressive. But here's the thing you have to understand. Given that it is proprietary, this handles color better than any other piece of software when you're talking about an Olympus file. And especially if you have to do, folks, if you have to do any low ISO shooting, you're worried about noise, do your initial processing in Olympus Workspace. Makes a big difference. But if you've got an EM1 Mark II or an EM1X, what they've created is the ability, I'm going to scroll all the way down here, the ability to edit your files while they are in camera. And what you're doing at that point is you're bypassing your computer's processor. You're using the camera's processors, which in the case of the EM1X is dual processors, which means you can actually edit your raw files faster. So if you want to be able to start your edits while the images are still on the card in the camera, you can use the software by plugging your camera into the computer and working your edits from there. It's amazing the way that they are setting up this technology here. So and it'll give you a JPEG output for that. So again, that's if you're in a hurry, you're looking to get images out. Really, really amazing. But a lot of software upgrades, a lot of firmware upgrades. Whoops, a lot of firmware upgrades. In fact, I'll share the links for you guys, for you Olympus users that maybe have not for some reason. Have not gone ahead and downloaded that. You're going to want to. The teleconverter 2X works with the 40 to 150, works with the 300, and it will work with the soon to be released 150 to 400 also. Just like any other 2X teleconverter, 2 stops of light loss, that's common, that's normal, but everything else in terms of the automatic features, everything still works, continuously all the way through. So for you Olympus users, congratulations, you got new cameras today. And again, guys, I'm not trying to dig at any camera company. I want to call it for what it is here. It's very exciting news that recently Sony did something similar to this, right? Sony released a firmware upgrade that gave Sony users new features. Olympus has been doing this for ages. So again, I'm not saying that, oh, well, because of that, you should run out and buy an Olympus camera. No. But I am telling you, understand, when people like Mr. Northrup go out and say, well, this company's dead and this is going away, we want all these companies and we need all these companies. We need them to keep pushing each other. And Olympus has consistently, historically, pushed the envelope and pushed other brands and other manufacturers to develop new and exciting technology. And that's exactly what's happening here. Not just with this firmware upgrade, but the features that are in the EM1X, the features that are now in the $1,500 body of the EM1 Mark II. So really, really cool stuff, gang. It's super cool stuff. And again, I'll say what I always say. This is the stuff that for me makes it really exciting to be a photographer right now, because it truly is. Like, it's an amazing time to be a photographer. Okay? All right. So that's it. I told you I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on it, but hey, I'm an Olympus ambassador. I'm going to share that news. It's exciting news. Now, questions. Let's dig in. I see that I had some go through. I know that I got room for a lot more. So let's dig them in here, because if I don't get more questions, then I'm going to have to, go talk more about that. Steve Kunder, in all fairness to Nikon, yes, Nikon has started doing it now too. Again, Olympus led the way. So it's definitely, definitely really, really exciting stuff. So Mike Osinski is asking me, is there a list of any of the lenses got a firmware update? Not that I am aware of yet, Mike. And look, full disclosure, I'm not going to lie to you. I only managed to get 2 camera bodies upgraded today. I just have not had enough time. I got kind of a preview of all this information yesterday afternoon. They sent it out to us as the visionaries to let us know that it was coming, etc. So, I was able to read through a lot of material. Very, very exciting. I was a slacker. I didn't get up at 2 a.m. in the morning to be able to do the downloads. So I managed to get 2 of them done this morning. But I have not come across any information yet, Mike, that says there is firmware updates yet on the lenses. So, you know, if that happens or if I come across anything like that, I will let you know. But I don't believe there are at this time. Okay. All right. Arnold, what do we got here? It says, hey, Joe, you always say pick your system, then buy one light. Whoops. Then buy one light and master it before you buy another light. I'm planning to use the Godox system. Should I buy an AD200 and some modifiers or one AD600? Well, Arnold, you don't want to ask that question of anybody. Like, you really don't, okay? So first of all, you acknowledge what I tell people to do, but then you kind of like cut the corner, okay? When I say figure out your system, I don't mean figure out your brand. I never said figure out your brand. I said figure out your system, okay? So does your system include AD200s and AD600s? Or, because to be honest with you, you know, that's a 400 watt second difference. So I can't speak for everybody because I know I'm going to say this and there'll be somebody that's going to come like chiming back in here and says, oh yeah, I use both of them. But to me, a system that's built with AD600s, the AD200 is almost pointless to own. I could see maybe adding an AD400 into the mix, but I don't know why you would mix those two strobes, right? I would maybe go ahead and mix some AD200s with some AD400s, but I don't know that I would, you know, I don't know that I would combine them. And Arnold, I see part two of your question. I don't know if I can get them both up here. No, I can't. So part two is you want to make sure you don't run out of options or limit yourself to the output. Look, here's the one thing I got to be honest with you, right? I understand where you're trying to go from the economics of your question, but the simple fact of the matter is there is no one flash unit that you're going to buy today that's going to do everything for you. And it would actually be really stupid to spend the money on an AD600 if you do not need that power. Because Arnold, I know that you're trying to make money with this, right? I'm almost positive you're trying to make money as a professional. So understand, let's say you just buy the AD200s and they cover you for 99% of your photography. When that 1% client comes along and you've got to like light up a football field and you need AD600s, you don't have to go out and buy AD600s. You don't have to own them. Rent them and pass the rental cost along to the client. Most of the commercial advertising and fashion photographers in New York City, most do not own studios, do not rent studios on a monthly basis, and do not own the cameras that they do their work with. They rent it as needed. That way they don't have to worry about, let's buy something huge so that I can do all these little things because once a year I may have to do this one big thing. That makes no sense whatsoever. So the decision that you're looking at making here, Arnold, is not buying one thing that's going to last you. Because what are you going to do? So you take that plan, you buy the AD600s, but then you need to get them on a plane, or you need to put them in a backpack. You're going to be one miserable photographer trying to pull that off, right? You just are. So you have to look at what consists of the majority of my shooting, what consists of the bulk of the work that you're going to do, and what gear is going to satisfy that. But don't ask, it is ridiculous to ask another photographer, should I buy a 600 watt second flash or a 200 watt second flash? There's not enough information there. All you're going to get is a worthless opinion. Because obviously my question to you is, why the hell do you need a 600 watt second flash? You do realize that most of the idiots walking around with AD600s barely ever crank them over 1/8 power unless they're being zombies and they're outside trying to overpower the sun. The rest of the time, 600 watt seconds is an insane amount of light. Like, you just don't need it. So, you know, you're playing the zombie game there, and you're never going to get me to cooperate with that. You're just not, because you're asking me a question with all the wrong information involved. Buy the gear that you need. Because the fact of the matter is, if you want to make money as a photographer, if you can't afford gear, that means you're not making money. If you're not making money, that means you suck as a business person. If you suck as a business person, it also means maybe you suck as a photographer. So you got to do some good self-evaluation, right? So yeah, if you're pricing properly and doing business the right way, you won't have a problem with any of those issues, okay? All right. So let me just back up here really quick. There's a whole series of questions that we seem to have people giving all kinds of advice on, okay? So we're going to have a little fun here since apparently we have multiple teachers in the chat room tonight, okay? Let's see how good their advice is. So Nerd45 came in and asked this question. Joe, I'm getting press credentials for a major auto show this coming weekend. My first press photographer gig, and I was wondering if you had any tips for shots. I have a wide angle lens and a CPL. Okay, excuse my stupidity, but at the moment my brain's going in 50 directions. What the heck is a CPL? So anyway, that being said, folks, for all of you, and I haven't read the advices yet, so let me get to the advices in a minute. But for all of you that gave him advice, I saw somebody said like, get low, do this, do that. Like, you're all being completely unhelpful. In fact, you're being very harmful. And I know you mean well, but let's back up. Because part of the problem is major auto show, it could mean a lot of different things, right? Because right out of the box, auto shows in the United States, they happen December through May every year in all the major cities, and that's where the auto manufacturers show off their new cars. That's what we call a major auto show in the United States, like the Detroit Auto Show or the LA Auto Show or the Philadelphia Auto Show or the New York Auto Show. Those are the 4 biggest auto shows in the United States. They are major auto shows. I have a feeling that's not what Nerd45 is talking about. I have a feeling that Nerd45 is talking about some other kind of auto show. So as we scroll down more, after some advice was given, we see that it's a huge show with literally thousands of vehicles, so big it's held on the state fairgrounds, mostly 1962 and older. So this is an auto show with antique cars. Okay, now, the next question that we have, because we're getting all this advice, okay? You're still not ready to give advice, folks. Nerd45, here's the next thing I need to know for you, and I don't see you giving an answer to this. So oh, circular polarizer. I see what that is. Okay, so CPL, folks, he's referring to a circular polarizer, okay? So once again, before we keep going with all these multiple teachers here, okay? Nerd45, why are you getting a press pass? Have you guys ever noticed, when you ask me questions, what's the first thing I ask you back? Why? You might learn, deal with why. Because getting a press pass is worthless. Like, what's the point? So you got a press pass. Ooh, you're hot stuff, right? I'm just saying, guys, right? Look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Why, Nerd45? Why do you have a press pass? What are you going to do? What is the point behind this gig, okay? Are you shooting for a newspaper? Like, are you really press? Or is the press pass just giving you access? So before I can give you any advice, like, what are we doing? Okay? So give me that information and I'll come back. So before you answer me with 1 or 2 words, Nerd45, like, give me the backstory, man. Even if it takes you 2 posts, give me the whole backstory. And then myself and the others that are here, yeah, I need to know more than for a website, Nerd45. Like your website, a car website. Like, so again, take your time, give me the details. Like seriously, guys, like I'm not trying to be a jerk here. You know, you guys like, okay, so it's vintage cars, 1962. You got a press photographer gig. What tips for shots? Well, what kind of shots do you need to take? Why are you there? Even if you're taking pictures for the website, for what purpose? Are you supposed to be getting pictures of the owners of the cars with the photographer or with the cars? Are you supposed to be getting pictures of just the cars? Do they want, like, what does your client want? Why? If you don't know the answers to these things, Nerd45, and if you're getting paid for this gig, you're about to fail this gig. See, the point is, folks, look, learning, let's start with the learning part, because you're here and you're asking me questions. It requires effort, gang, right? If you're just going to throw a question out there that is all-encompassing and expect to get a bunch of stuff, what are you going to do with that information? How does that information help you? It doesn't help you. Come on, people, we're better than this. We're absolutely better than this. Learning requires effort, serious freaking effort. So give me the whole set of details here at Nerd 45. My challenge to you is give me enough information that I'm not gonna have any questions left by the time you're done. And then I could take my 40 years of experience and the other people that are here can take their experience and they can help you solve the problems that you will encounter with your press pass at this vintage car show, taking pictures for some kind of a website. Give us the details, all right? And then we'll come back and we'll deal with this, all right? So, scrolling back up here, going to, Pinnacle Pete, I think that was number 2. So let's hear the first one here. Hi, Joe. I enjoyed your unique photo presentation a couple weeks ago. Thank you. I noticed from the metadata that you were shot mostly at f13 ISO 100, okay? So that's the first part of his question. Second part of his question, some would say not to go below the base ISO 200 or to avoid apertures in the diffraction range on micro four thirds f8 or smaller. But you think outside the box and don't necessarily follow the rules. That is correct. Now for part 3, can you teach us by elaborating on your choices here? Okay, so actually let me go back to your first part 1, Pinnacle Pete. You are correct, but you overlooked an important piece, okay? I routinely shoot at ISO 200 and I routinely shoot at f8 or f5.6. I did do that also at the beginning of that presentation at Unique Photo. When I changed and went to f13 and went to the lower ISO, that was when first I sprayed the water all over the camera. I needed to stop the lens down, and I did mention this in class. I needed to stop the lens down so that I could get the shaped highlights off of the diaphragm as the water was being hit with the light that was pointed back into the lens. The other reason that I needed to be shooting at f13 or smaller was for the live composite, because I needed to be able to eliminate all of the ambient light in the room. Because if you remember, I did that live composite shot with the room lights on. So that was the equivalent of doing a time exposure with any other camera brand. But I did it with the lights on, and so I needed to have a really, really small aperture. So those two situations that you saw, the one with the water drops and the one with the live composite, they are absolutely like exceptions to the rule. In fact, on my YouTube channel, the video that I have that shows my stage presentation at WPPI for Olympus, I do the water drops and the live composite in that, and I explain it a little bit more. So if you watch that, you'll hear a little bit more detail. But that's the reason why. I am a firm believer, whenever possible, shoot at base ISO. And in the studio, my go-to aperture is anywhere between 5.6 and 8, 99% of the time. For the kind of work that I'm shooting, do I wind up picking up bad diffraction or having issues if I go to an f11 or an f13 or if I shoot at ISO 64? No, you really don't. But again, if we are going to maximize the quality potential, then yes, that we want to be able to try and keep within those ranges. And especially even with the firmware upgrade that Olympus just came out with, the lower ISO possibilities are awesome. But the simple fact of the matter is, no matter what they do with software, ever, any camera brand, Olympus included, base ISO is still the ISO. It's the sensitivity level that your sensor was built for. So that's always going to be the best quality. But it comes down to, are you going to be able to see the quality difference? I can tell you that even prior to the firmware upgrade, going from ISO 200 down to 64, was I going to see a quality difference in a side-by-side comparison? Oh, heck no. But yeah, but that's the reason why we had the really, really small apertures there. So life is beautiful. The lady sitting next to you at Unique was freaking out when I sprayed the water at the camera. Is she the lady that was sitting right by my tripod when I did it? Yes, indeed. There was a woman that was sitting right by my camera when I got the water out, and literally, very, vocally was like, "Oh my God, no! Please tell me you're not going to do that." So, yeah, it was. She was kind of a little bit freaked out when I did that. So, okay. So I've got more information here from Nerd 45. So I want to get back to this because seriously, Nerd 45. Can I call you Nerd for short? I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but I want to make sure that you're getting good information that's going to help you, right? I mean, seriously, that's important. So his response was, okay, I'm trying to start a new career, and I thought that this would be a way to gain experience with this type of event photography. I'm not being paid, so there's no pressure. Okay, So, and let me just make sure that I didn't miss any other. Okay, and it's for website. All right, cool. So nerd, I want to know one more thing. I'm still not ready to give you the answers, right? I want to know this website, and I'm assuming obviously it's probably like a car website, or maybe it's the website for the event organizer that organizes this car show. So that's why it helps to know. Are they looking for just kind of, random event pictures that are a sampling of car owners and people looking at the cars and detail on the cars? Or is this website just about the cars? Meaning they don't really want the people in the cars. Like they want these cars to look amazing and sexy and, all that stuff. Give me that piece, nerd. And then I think we can give you some good feedback. And then we can also go back to some of the comments that were left earlier. Spinning Wheels Photography, you don't have to apologize for stepping on toes. I just want to get you guys thinking about real problem solving, because Spinning Wheels, your tip about getting low was good. I think it was you that had the tip about getting low. It's a great tip, but let's make sure that it's actually going to apply for what he needs to do. That's my point, guys. That's all it is, right? I love it when there's great photography discussion and people are really thinking through solving problems, right? That's the key, right? To do that, we need a better understanding of what exactly are the problems that we're solving. That's it. So nerd, give me that last piece, okay? And we will solve that. H&A Family Photos, Arnold, am I doing any shows in the Pennsylvania or two-state area? I have nothing, believe it or not, I have nothing local coming up until the middle of September. I'll be in New York. I'm doing an event on September 14th. It's a Saturday, which is a full day event. And we're going to do a fashion photo walk in Midtown Manhattan near Times Square. Here, let me switch over. But I will tell you, Arnold, keep an eye on my website and my social media posts. By the end of this week, I will be posting information about some upcoming workshops at my studio in Allentown. My new studio is big enough that I can actually do some decent workshops. So the marketing materials are being put together. But it is September 14th, I'll be doing the street fashion photography workshop in New York, along with the talk about creativity and some other stuff that day. That's currently the only thing I have local. And then, of course, the end of October is Photo Plus. That's the 24th, 25th, and 26th. And indeed, I will be there. I'll be presenting for Olympus for that, okay? So, Adam, where are we at here? I love seeing reactions by non-Olympus users and the unknowing Olympus users react when they go out in the rain. Yeah, I mean, I totally do it for effect, Adam. Like when I do these demos, I either take a water bottle and pour water all over the camera, or in this case, I literally started on the back of the camera where there was no reason to spray water on the back of the camera, but just started basically spraying water all over the camera. I only needed it on the lens, but just to kind of prove a point. Yeah, it is fun. It's kind of the same with a live composite. It just completely freaks people out when they're not used to it. So, so let's see here. Robert Brown Jr.'s got a question. I have a Tamron 70-200 G2, and there's a switch that says full and infinity. What should I have it on? So, Robert, I don't own that lens, and I've never handled that lens. But I think that you are maybe misusing one of those two words. Generally speaking, when there's like a limiter switch on a lens, the limiting is on the short end of the focus, not on the far end, right? So generally the lens is always going to go out to infinity. Generally, there may be exceptions. So please, if there is, let me know, gang. So generally it's always going to go out to infinity, but what will happen is you can set the lenses up so that the closest focus point, there's a certain distance. It's predetermined by the manufacturer usually, okay? But that's what that switch is doing. The reason for doing that, they do that a lot, Robert, with macro lenses. They do that so that the lens doesn't have to focus as far. If you're going to be taking lots of pictures really, really close up, then you want that lens to be able to focus all the way to 1:1. But if you're going to use the macro lens at 3 or 4 feet away, you don't need it to focus in that range. So with the limiter switch, it shortens the amount of work that the lens has to do to be able to find the right focus. It reduces the tracking time. And essentially what it's doing is it's speeding the lens up in terms of how it works. So I would just go back and hit your instruction manual on those, but I think you're going to find that's what that's all about. Adam, Jordan needs to represent at Photokina. I would love to do Photokina. I absolutely would. It's a little challenging for the camera manufacturers to take ambassadors to different countries. Granted, it happens, and sometimes there's ways around things, but yeah, hopefully one of these days. I will admit that one's on my list now. I've had the incredible good fortune to speak at the 4 biggest shows here in the U.S. Photo Plus, WPPI, Imaging, and then Shutterfest. It would be amazing. I would love to do the photo show in Great Britain, and I would love to do Photokina. Those are 2 that are definitely really high on my list. So back to Nerd 45 here. So I think we got everything now. So he's saying, no, the website is unrelated to the car show. The content creator of the website that we use my shots is looking to update their site since it's been a while. It's more of an arts and entertainment type site. See, now, okay, and now we have a little more to work with. So, couple of things, right? If it's an arts and entertainment type site, what you need to do, Nerd 45, is you need to go take a good look at the site in terms of what do they like to use pictures of? In other words, are they just showing locations and things happening, or do they show, because this is what usually happens with arts and entertainment, are they showing people having fun and enjoying these sites, or these events? If that's the case, your pictures are less about the cars and more about the attendees. So we could take the suggestion that Spinning Wheels Photography had about getting low, and indeed, you could do like a cool wide angle shot that's low, maybe with the grill work of the car in the foreground, and then people kind of over the top of the hood looking at details and things like that. Totally would work, okay? But since you have a press pass and since you are going to play photojournalist for a day, what you should be looking at is every picture that you take, what is the story that it tells? What does it communicate? So just taking a picture of a car sitting there doesn't tell much of a story, does it? No, it's a car, big deal, who cares? So if you take the picture of the car sitting there with a wide angle and you see thousands or hundreds of cars in the background with people all around them, now you're telling a little bit of a story. You're showing this car prominently featured at this big car show, right? Another way to do that same kind of idea would be to put your camera up on a monopod, elevate it so that you're looking down with that wide angle. And you've got the car in the foreground, maybe with some people looking around the car, but as the shot pans out, we see all the cars and that in the background. Depending on how many images they're going to use, certainly since it's cars, details are always cool to do. Like the hood ornaments or the logos or maybe wheel detail or trim detail, that kind of stuff. There's lots of cool things you can do there. But yeah, what you want to do, nerd, is you want to go take a good look at this arts and entertainment type website, see what kinds of pictures they're using currently and what they like to highlight. If they're highlighting the idea that, hey, bring the family, have fun, then that's what you should be showing for them, is bring the family, have fun. You should be showing people enjoying the cars, right? That's the important thing. At car shows, you can always get really cool pictures of people. You can also get really cool pictures of pets. Dog owners frequently will have dogs and pets with, or pet owners will frequently have dogs and stuff like that with them, where you can get a lot of cool images going on. So that's the kind of stuff that I would look for. But try to tell stories. That's what a press photographer is going to do, is essentially create stories, okay? So Nick says here, just for a data point, he's standing out there with his Sigma 150 to 600, and it goes from 10 to infinity. And then before that, it's 2.8 meters to 10 meters, right? So that's, again, you can switch that off. So it's like a close range and a distant range, and then you've got a full setting. And that's common on the bigger lenses. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely an option. And Nick, I saw you had a post early on here. I've got to go back to Nick's post because I think that this is one I'm kind of obligated to respond to here. Hang on, let me find this. Nick, as we were just coming online, Nick typed, "Hey Joe, it's Nick from Maryland. Do I get extra credit or a dunce cap? I'll be listening to the live stream while shooting osprey and eagles at Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge." Nick, I'm going to say that I'm honored, but I'm going to go with dunce cap on that one, man. Go pay attention to the birds, for crying out loud. Catch this later. But seriously, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. So, all right, let's scroll on down here, see what I missed in these questions. Let's see. Joe Newman, you want a Joe bobblehead for your tripod while you shoot? It could be arranged. for a price. Anything's available for a price, man. I mean, come on, you know. Darko, I'm finding models that are professional, hard to find in Winnipeg. How do I word my ads looking for models properly in your opinion? Well, first of all, Darko, this is a conversation I've had a lot of times before. I'm curious in the sense of what are you defining professional? So I know you're still here because I saw you just made another comment. Let me know how you're defining a professional model. And then I'll give you some feedback. I'll tell you how to find that person, but define professional for you. Troy, how you doing, man? Troy, I owe you a response to a message, by the way. I'll get to it soon. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Gosh, I know I'm going to say that wrong. Moraro? I apologize if I butchered that. I have a feeling I do. Moro. Gosh, I'm reading the username. Sorry, gang. I guess field work in general always sounds good, and perhaps it is a bit more exciting. Are you ever tempted to do photojournalism work again? You know, there's two sides to that. From the day that I left photojournalism, I've missed it, period. The challenge now is twofold. One, it's really, really hard to make a living as a photojournalist, which some would say, gee, that's a weak excuse, but it's a fact. You know, it would take a lot of work to kind of reestablish myself in that field. Two, at my age, I just don't know that I'm physically up for it. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of amazing photojournalists that are my age and older. But they've also been at it like for their whole lives, so they're conditioned, it's a routine, and even at this point in their careers, they've slowed down from where they were. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, every now and then I get to dabble with something that's kind of got a photojournalistic edge to it, and that's fun, and I think that's kind of enough, you know, to keep me going at this point. But I will admit, it's a lot of fun doing the work that I do now, where basically I have the control. I'm not at the mercy of the moment. I have complete control over what I'm doing, and it's a lot of fun. So, okay. All right. Cooley Priestley picked up 4 8200s and modifiers. I can't wait to use them. Awesome, man. Very good. Have fun. So let's see. Scrolling on down here. Weirdo Inc. Big reason to stick with Olympus is you get a new camera for free every year. You know, pretty close. Not exactly every year, but still, yeah. I mean, you get these updates. They're not just like bug fixes. These are like legit feature updates that they add in, which is truly like very, very cool. And seriously, I'm thrilled that other companies are starting to do more and more and more of that. I'm really, really thrilled. I think it's a big key. It's a big key to sustaining the industry. I just do. So I'm really glad that's happening. So let's see here. Tim Chan, different subject, but in terms of color calibration, what are your thoughts on the DataColor Spider 5 versus the Spider X? Is there a big difference between those two? Tim, I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea. No idea. I use the iWrite Studio, iStudio. Here, let me see if I can get it on the screen here for you. Or X-Write iStudio, sorry. Gosh, I blew that one, didn't I? I have used, there it is. I have used the Spiders in the past. I believe I had the Spider 5. I'm guessing it was like quite a long time ago. I had no complaints about it at all. The reason why I made the switch, here I'll switch over to this. The reason why I made the switch to the i1 Studio, now that I got it right, is i1 Studio allows me to calibrate monitors, and it goes all the way through the entire printing process, which, as you guys know, last year I got my hands on an Epson printer and started doing a lot of printing. So that's essentially why I decided to switch over to that, because it had a little bit more capability. But I had no complaints with the Spider 5 at all. I had used that for quite some time, and it worked absolutely great. So all right, let's see here. Mike Zupancic, I'm a Canon shooter, but that news is still very exciting because I want companies like Olympus and Sony to push Canon. Yeah, and see, Mike, honestly, like this is exactly my philosophy on all this stuff. When one company does stuff like this that is different and it's new and it's exciting, honestly, it pushes all the companies. It really does. So yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks if your company's not the one that, you know, gets there first or whatever. But the point is, it pushes all of them to, you know, to kind of catch up and work on that stuff. So let's see here. Scrolling on down. So I know a bunch of stuff came in here. Cozy Speed, thank you for the kind words. Video coming shortly, by the way, Cozy Speed. Hey, by the way, I'm curious. Just a little poll here. How many of you use Tenba backpacks, camera backpacks, and swear by them, like love them, like think they're the greatest bag ever? I'm just curious. I will share why in a bit, but I'd be curious to know if Tenma is a really popular bag amongst my followers here. Per Luigi, do I think that the future of cameras is going back to the APS-C format, and will the mirrorless put the DSLR in retirement? First question, no, I don't think that the future of cameras is going back to APS-C format. I think that the future of cameras is going to go to Micro Four Thirds or even smaller. Literally, I'm not saying that because of the tattoo or because of being a brand ambassador. I'm not. On the way there, certainly APS-C will come back in the trend for a while. But no, we're gonna, and you know, there's all kinds of arguments that says maybe even it's not the same kind of sensors we're working with now. But I think you'll see it continue to push smaller. And as far as will mirrorless put the DSLR in retirement, not immediately, no. Certainly the cameras, the companies that make DSLRs, they're not going to be investing as many dollars and as much effort into DSLR improvement or you know, changes in that sense. But you know, there is also arguments that, you know, if they create major internal upgrades between processors and color engines and sensors on mirrorless camera, they could put that into you know, a DSLR, vice versa. But you know, I think over time, and when I say time, I'm talking maybe 10, 15 years, right? But I think over time, we'll see DSLRs go away. But I don't think they're going to go away immediately at this point. So Deborah, thank you so much for the super chat. Sincerely, thank you. Okay. Tim Chan, if you had to buy one ND filter, what stop of ND filter would you purchase? I've not found a clear answer anywhere online. Well, you're not going to find a clear answer, Tim, because it depends on what you shoot and what your needs are, right? I don't actually own an ND filter. I've got ND filters built into my EM1X, so I don't need them. I would probably wind up, for the kind of work I do, I would probably wind up buying a polarizer first, okay? If I was going to go the ND filter route, I wouldn't buy one. I would either want a variable ND filter, or I would buy a set so that I had multiple stops, and then I could also combine them. That's how we did things back in the day. Still applies today, right? But of course, they do make variable NDs now, which are also, you know, helpful in that sense. But you're not going to find a clear answer because there is no clear answer. It depends on what you're trying to shoot, what the environmental situation is in terms of what's the ambient light, what kind of exposures do you need, et cetera. And it depends on your shooting style. So it's going to vary, you know, dramatically across the board. Okay. All right. Scrolling on back down here. Okay, I got all that. Got that. Got the Tamron lens. We talked about that. Okay, so Darko, do I have any talks and events in Canada coming up? Nothing scheduled, I hope. The closest I'm going to be to Canada, two things. One in July, I'll be in Michigan, in Holland, Michigan. And then I believe it's November, I'm going to be in Everett, Washington, which is, you know, kind of up close to Vancouver. But right now, that's the closest I've got set up. Okay. Troy, if I could choose between mixed color LEDs or single color, which would you choose? You assume like 5,000, 5,500K, example, daylight. Troy, it really depends on the light in terms of its power output. Most mixed color LEDs are not as bright as the single color LEDs, right? So if I'm buying the light because I need intensity, then I'll probably go with single color, hands down. If I don't need the intensity and like the idea to have the additional creative capabilities of the mixed color, then yes, I would say for sure I would go with mixed color. But it really, the first qualifier there is how bright do I need the light to be? If brightness is, lumens is my priority, then I'm probably going to go with single color. Okay. So let's see here, scrolling on down. Let's see, Marcus, did I return back to the Honeybadger? There's 4 in my studio. Actually, there's more than 4. There's 6 of them here. I didn't return to them. I set them back up for the purpose of being able to do some video work using the LED lights in them. But the other reason is my new studio, which somebody just asked me a question about the new studio, so I will talk about that in a minute. My new studio has all the Godox lights in it. So I'm working strictly with Godox in there. And then I've got the Honeybadgers in here. So yeah, I didn't buy new ones or anything. They're the same ones I had. I had just basically stopped using them. I was going to sell them and get rid of them, but decided in the end to hang on to them. And I'm glad I did, because they works out well for, I'm doing the majority of my shooting at this point in the new studio. But I will still use this studio, especially for illustrating things for YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So the Honeybadgers are great because of the LED modeling lights, which are quite bright. So, okay. Let's see, and scrolling on down here. So Keith Bieber, I own an OMD camera for 5 years. People have been saying Micro Four Thirds is dead. Your Olympus tattoo gives me hope. Well, yeah, it gives me hope too. But yeah, the Micro Four Thirds isn't going anywhere. It's just not. Okay. Let's see, Sunny Crackbeats here. He's got 2 comments. Photojournalists' pay varies by medium. Television photojournalists make mean wages of about $45,000. Yep, I would agree with that statement. And photojournalists working for newspapers, magazines, and book publishers earn mean salaries of $41,000. I'm earning a lot more than that. And so that's, unfortunately, that's not enough for me at this point to be able to sustain the lifestyle that I want to live. Certainly it works for some people, but yeah, that would not be ideal for me. So Darko, the Epson Echo tank printers, I'll be honest with you, I have no experience with them. So I hate to say, I am not using one of those. I'm really not familiar with them. So I don't want to send you down a path there. I would say do a lot more research. So, well, we got a couple of people here talking about bags. So Steve's using Think Tank. Mike Osinski says he uses the Ape case. Okay. Mark has several Timba shoulder bags. Let's see. Okay, cool. Anybody else here? Okay, IB, wait, is this live? Yes, it is live. Spinning wheels as a low pro. Okay, cool. So, and I will explain why. I've got a video coming up. So I've been a Think Tank guy for a long time, and I don't have the Temba down here right now. I love the Think Tank Urban Approach. They call it the Urban Approach 15. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. For my needs, I really, really wish it was 1 inch bigger all the way around, just 1 inch. It would be to die for, especially with all the traveling I do. It's perfect. Fits in the overhead and it fits under seats, even on the commuter planes. It's great. I could handle the 1 inch more and I wouldn't be stuffing it. The problem I have for what I need to travel with, I'm stuffing that bag every time I go. So I found a Tenba bag that it's expensive. The Tenba bags are more expensive than the Think Tank bags. And it indeed was that kind of inch bigger all the way around that I wanted. Love the size of it, love the build quality on it, but it has a really, really bizarre design flaw. So I will talk about it next week, I promise. I apologize for teasing it, but I don't have the bag downstairs here right now, so I don't want to talk about it without being able to show you. And it's a design flaw that potentially would cause you to damage a ton of equipment. And sure enough, guess who found that design flaw the hard way? Fortunately, I did not damage any equipment. But yeah, learned this mistake literally the first time I went to take this bag out of my car after loading it and transporting it to the new studio. And like I was dumbfounded. So now I'm hyper aware of it, but still, it's a little interesting. Everything else about the bag I love. The size, the construction quality, a lot of their design elements, really, really gorgeous. But this one major like design piece that really just scared the heck out of me. So next week, I promise, I will talk to you guys about that. Photo mix media. This is an interesting question, gang. What is your view about self-claimed photographers calling themselves pros and not having their gear or equipment calibrated? So, I mean, photo mix, here's the thing, right? First of all, every professional photographer is self-claimed, as you say. I'm going to use your phrase, right? There's no certification process where you go out and you're legally like, you are now a professional photographer. So let's dial that part back, right? That being said, it's no different than buying a car. It's no different than going to a landscaper or a contractor or whatever. Some people do better work than others. Some people we like the work to do. Some people we hate the work to do. It doesn't make them not professional. For me, I'm a big believer in the idea that professional is behavior. Professional to me is less about your gear, and it's definitely not about whether or not it's calibrated. Professional is the way you're going to treat your customers. Professional is the way you deliver what you do and the quality with which you deliver it. So now that being said, okay, their gear and equipment calibrated, that is definitely not the metric of a professional. Should your gear be calibrated? Well, yeah. I mean, it's designed to be calibrated, right? We wouldn't have calibration tools if they weren't meant to exist. We simply wouldn't, right? It wouldn't be a thing, okay? But at the same time, let's be fair, all of the photography that I do, I could do it on uncalibrated gear because it's all subjective. Certainly if you are hired to photograph the Mona Lisa and reproduce it accurately, well then you better have seriously calibrated stuff because you don't get to tweak the colors in the Mona Lisa, right? It's got to be an exact match. But when you're shooting a portrait of someone or most of this stuff, it's subjective. So, believe me, I am on board with your sympathy, your sympathies in terms of, hey, if people aren't taking these steps, they're not really behaving professionally. That I agree with. But yeah, I mean, I don't care what business we want to talk about. There's going to be people that cut corners, that kind of stuff. There just are. So, okay. Let's see. Life's beautiful. What's the difference between a graduated and ND filter and a variable one? The graduated literally is graduated. The ND one is, the variable one is one that you can change the amount of neutral density that it has, okay? Arnold, I found a vendor who's selling 6-foot by 10-foot rugs with cool patterns and colors that I think would be cool to use as backgrounds for about $60 a piece. Would you ever consider using something like that? Sure. The challenge with using stuff that's got like patterns and stuff is that it becomes really, really easily identifiable and you don't want to be too busy, right? So how are you going to make it not busy? Number one, you're going to back it way up. Well, keep in mind that 6-foot by 10-foot space, the more you back it up, the smaller it becomes in relationship to your subject's head. Okay? So I'm not saying, oh, don't do it, but I'm saying, realize, how many portraits do you want to take in front of the same pattern, right? So once you get it, your challenge becomes, how many different ways can I find to photograph this to make it look different or unique? That's the challenge, okay? So let's see. Abby, am I having any workshops in London this year? Definitely not this year. I would love to, but again, it's kind of the same thing as I was talking about before. So let's see. Pinnacle Pete, I don't own Temba products, but I really like their stuff and will likely try Temba once the new bags or backpacks are needed. Yeah, and so make sure you stay tuned next week. I will talk about, talk about what my issue is with this bag. I'm trying to give Temba an opportunity to respond first to see if they can educate me as to maybe something I've overlooked. But yeah, I would like to definitely like to see what they have to say. Doug Goldman, sorry. Will you ever show us how to shoot plus size models? Sure. That's definitely a possibility. I don't work with a lot of plus size models, but actually I do from time to time. It's just the ones that I photograph have not been comfortable being in YouTube videos. So that hasn't really been an option. In fact, the last 2 plus size models I shot, they were for boudoir shoots and awesome stuff, but they were not willing to have them show up in a YouTube video, understandably. So it's a possibility. It could be coming. I will tell you this. Shooting a plus size model is really not that much different than shooting a skinny model, as long as you don't subscribe to the idea that I have to know the right poses, okay? If you're one of those people that is all about working with poses, then the problem that you're gonna have is you're trying to fit like a skinny person into, or excuse me, you're trying to stick a curvy person into a skinny person pose. That doesn't work. The way that you get good at posing is by learning to understand body language and learning to understand anatomy. You do those 2 things, you'll find out that working with a curvy girl is really not a lot different than working with a skinny girl. It's really not, okay? But you have to understand how is the body going to respond to the things that you're asking them to do. Once you know that, it's really easy to work around things. But yeah, at some point there will be stuff that I will show on that, I promise, okay? The tutorials are coming, they're coming. Spinning wheels, haven't heard much about your new studio and the work coming out of it. Follow me on Instagram. I've been posting images. And in fact, I have another shot that'll be going up tomorrow from the new studio. So the stuff I've been shooting the last week and a half is all just test stuff to get used to the natural light that's there, to see what I can do, what I can't do, how I want to mix in some strobes with it, experimenting. But yeah, it's just about set up, just about ready to go. There will be a full video once I have it completely set. Even today, I actually took some more. Today, I took the important stuff to my new studio. Today was the most important move-in trip that I made to the new studio. I took bottles of water, protein bars, and bags of potato chips and cheesy popcorn. That was the most important trip of stuff that got moved to the new studio today. Yeah, so it's getting there. It's just about ready to start going. But I've done a few shoots, small shoots. I actually did a client shoot in there yesterday for a former intern of mine. We did some photos for her website. So these are not shots that are going to be part of a video, but yeah, so it's coming along. You will see some stuff very soon, but keep watching my Instagram. There's already 1 shot on there, and there will be more to come. Okay. So, per Luigi, you sold your first 2 pictures on Shutterstock, 25 cents each. Well, so that's 50 cents and 2 pictures. So you need to sell a couple hundred more, just a couple hundred, you know, and then you can buy dinner at that point maybe, right? So, but seriously, hey, congratulations on selling some stuff. That's cool. Now, my advice to you, try and keep track of the company or the client that bought the images so that eventually you can also keep track of if you got a tear sheet out of it, because it's kind of cool when you can follow up and say, hey, there's my picture, right? So yeah, it's neat to do that. So, let's see, we're doing good on time here. So of course, now we're getting to the end, like the questions are flying in now. All right, so FN89, I recently had a sports fitness photo shoot with a brand new model. I'm not happy with the photos. What kind of shots or angles would you have tried? While I will admit that I didn't research beforehand. Okay, so, you know, I can't answer that, guys, for the same reason. Eric, by the way, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I can't answer for the same reason I couldn't answer Nerd45's question before about his car show pictures. Well, okay, so you shot sports and fitness. Great. Why? Why did you shoot sports and fitness? What were you trying to accomplish with sports and fitness? That then will tell me what shots and what angles should you have done. And more importantly, the reason why people screw up sports and fitness pictures the most, it's not actually the angles, it is actually the pose/activity, and even more importantly, the lighting. Lighting is crucially important for a sports and fitness image. So indeed, the fact that you didn't research beforehand, that's a problem, but I can't really give you an answer because I'm just gonna be picking stuff out of thin air, right? That has no bearing. Why were you taking these pictures? What were you trying to accomplish? More detail. A 1 or 2 word answer is not going to get you the information that you want, right? So let's see. Al B. Joe, when you did photojournalism, did you sometimes need to use a manual flash at a low setting to fill a bit, not to be the main light, just trying to compensate for a bit of harsh shadows? Al B. I'm so damn old. All the flashes were manual back then, man. No, literally, when I started, manual flashes, that was it. Those of you that are my age or older, you'll remember the Honeywell potato mashers. All you young folks are like, what the hell is a Honeywell potato masher? In fact, like, why would you use a potato masher to take a picture, right? So you got to be old to understand what a potato masher is, and the best ones were made by Honeywell. They were not automatic, right? So Perluigi, thank you so much, man. So yes, I mean, we did fill flash. It was called fill flash, and we did fill flash all the time. And even when the automatic flashes came out, I've talked before about how my favorite one was the Vivitar 283, which had the auto thyristor automatic sensor on the front of the flash. So keep in mind, guys, there was no TTL stuff back then. So wherever you had the flash would fire, the light would travel to the subject, come back to the sensor on the flash, and then turn the flash off, right? That's how it worked. So, but yeah, we did fill flash all the time. Very, very common. So, Steve Wilking, when did I say I was going to be in Holland, Michigan? I am going to be in Holland, Michigan soon, man, real soon. Whoops, here, let me switch the browser over. I am there July 26th and July 27th. So it's actually a 3-day event. It's the 26th, 27th, and 28th. But since I'm traveling from out of town, they cut me a break, and I'm doing all of my presentations on Friday and Saturday, and then I'll be flying out on Sunday. But yeah, all the details are there on my website here. I'll put this link in. Yeah, if you're free that weekend, Steve, it'd be great to see you. We'll be doing some fun stuff that weekend, okay? All right, so, whoops, I lost my spot now. Let's get back to my spot here. Scrolling back, sorry, okay? All right, so a couple of people talking about the think tank urban approach, yeah. So let's see, Troy Hall answering Al B. What is this about? Full frame is dead. Troy, micro four thirds is traditionally very slow. What do you mean slow? What's slow about micro four thirds? Oh, manual focus, sorry, I got it. You're off the hook. I was gonna have to give you a hard time there. Okay, so let's see here. People, seriously, all this this camera bag info is very helpful, gang. Thank you. Okay. So Michael Lang saw a vid on YouTube from a guy ranting about how he hated the Olympus EVF. Your thoughts? He's some guy on YouTube that hates the EVF. So, please don't get me wrong, right? But number one, what am I going to say? It sucks. Yeah, like that's going to happen, right? I have no problem with it. I simply don't. If you watch my video about why I switched to Olympus, if you watch my 6-month video with Olympus, all that stuff, EVF was huge for me. Now, let's be clear. Are there higher resolution EVFs out there? Oh, hell yes, there are. But it comes at a price, right? It simply comes at a price. So do your research. I have no problems with it. I think the system is awesome, works great for me, it doesn't bother me at all. I have shot sports, I have shot some nature stuff with it, I do my portrait work, I've shot a wedding with it. I have no problem with it at all. I mean, it's fine. All right, let's see here. Tor, just bought my first camera at the age of 46. Congratulations, man. It's never too old to get a camera. A Nikon D5600, you want to learn and I want to practice, but what should be my main focus at startup? Your main focus, Tor, should be a couple of things. One, read your camera manual. While you're reading your camera manual, everything that you don't understand, which will be a lot if you're just starting, it's okay. Take a highlighter and highlight it. And then over the next few months, one thing at a time, you're going to go through and you're going to go to Google. That's spelled Google. And you're going to type in whatever that is that you highlighted and learn about it. Okay? So that's going to be a project that's going to take you probably the next year to do, literally. Okay? In the meantime, you are going to work on learning by taking lots and lots and lots of pictures and ignoring everything that these idiots on YouTube say, except me, right? Don't let people tell you what's a good picture or what's a bad picture. Take a ton of pictures. You need to go out and make a lot of mistakes. You need to experiment. You need to take pictures, and you need to be able to look at those pictures that you took and say, I don't know. I'm not digging that. But then you have to answer the important question. What could I do to make it better? If I could go back and take that again, how would I improve this picture? That's what you need to do. Okay? So, but yeah, that's where you start. Don't get all caught up in the gear. Definitely don't be listening to all these people about, what you should be doing, you shouldn't be doing, etc. So, But anyway, that's that. IB, it just occurred to me that the last time you were here months ago, you were fretting about getting started. Now you've realized that you got paid for your last 3 shoots. Congratulations, man. Keep going. That's awesome. Okay. Larry Davis, how often do you incorporate the inverse square laws into your photographs? Every freaking time. I mean, literally, because it's part of the physics of light. Okay. And especially now that I'm in the new studio with all the big windows and I'm using a lot of natural light. And keep in mind, to be clear, guys, I'm not shooting exclusively natural light. I saw somebody say the other day, it's like, yeah, Edelman stopped using strobes. No, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. No, in fact, I went out and I bought a couple more strobes. Okay, so I didn't stop using strobes, right? But I am shooting a lot more natural light stuff just because I can, because I've got these amazing north-facing windows. So yeah, I mean, even with that stuff, the inverse square law is crucially important to making sure that I have flattering light. Just because it's a north-facing window doesn't mean I have flattering light, right? So, so anyway, yeah, all the time, okay? Where are we at time-wise here? Let's try and get it through. Let's see here. All right, so here's one. I don't know this person, but I'll take a shot here. So Doug Goldman, in the meantime, Google photographer Sadi Khalid, also boot bar work with ebony plus size models. Awesome, good. Better be good, okay? Otherwise, you'll never post another comment again. Better be good. I'm gonna take you at your word. So Art in the Dark, in a situation where a female photographer I know is in charge of media credentials at a venue and will purposely not all, did I get the rest of your comment here? I didn't get the rest of your comment. Where's the rest of your comment? Okay, so that's not gonna help me. We can't do anything with that. All right, so let's see here. I wanna see, we're almost out of time, so I'm gonna try and grab a couple more here. Oh, here's a follow-up for FN89 who asked about the fitness models, or the professional models before, or the fitness models, sorry. I was looking for a model for that day, and it just happened that he was a personal trainer, and he was looking to showcase his fitness as well as self-advertisement. Well, so then, you know, one of the first thing is what kind of fitnesses he does. So again, you know, FN, you asked, like, what kind of angles, what kind of stuff, well, what kind of fitness does he do, right? So it depends on what he does. You need to highlight that. You need to show it off. What muscles are important to him? Is he a guy where six-pack abs is important? Is he a guy where arms are important? Is he a guy where legs are important? Like, what is it that he does? Show that kind of stuff off. If he's a personal trainer, it would make a lot of sense actually not to just show him looking all buff and stuff, but to show him maybe working with someone. Okay, and even personal trainers, they all have kind of their specialties, so to speak, right? So yeah, I mean, you mentioned you didn't do any planning or research in advance. It all comes down to the planning, right? You have to. So, let's see here. Spinning wheels, the model of potato masher, did it have the pop-in flashbulbs? Yes, no, actually, sorry. I had those when I was a kid, when I first started. They were like leftover from the 60s. No, I used the Honeywell ones. So they didn't, okay? Let's see here. Nick adds, Nick, did you learn this from experience? I hope not, for your sake. Nick adds, be careful if you come across an old Vivitar 283. It will fry modern cameras with high voltage. Yes, you don't take a 283 and put it in the hot shoe of your current camera. That will have a very bad ending in most cases, okay? 11 studio photography. Can we see you in a live photo shoot in the near future behind the scenes? Yes. Visit togknowledge.com. Coming up, okay? It's my new website. You guys know that I used to do the Patreon thing. I've gone out and I've built my own because Patreon, unfortunately, has made some changes recently that really kind of suck for creators. So yes, join the crowd at togknowledge.com and you will be able to see some behind the scenes live shoots. But I want to be really clear, just so I'm not misleading you, you're not going to see a lot of them. And there's a real simple reason why, 11 Studio. You're not learning anything by watching me in a studio. All you're doing is being entertained, okay? You're learning by picking up the camera and doing it yourself. Swear to God, I promise you, from somebody who interned as a young kid with people and did all that stuff, you don't learn anything until you do it yourself, okay? But yes, you will see some behind the scenes where I'm gonna let a camera run while I'm in there, so, okay? Let's see, what else? What strobes did I get? Somebody, Electroprint. I picked up 2 Godox AD 400s, that's all. Mainly because there are some things that I wanted to be able to do with some dancers that are going to require a little bit more light than what I'm getting out of the AD 200s. but they won't get used a lot. They'll get used kind of for specialized purposes. So let's see, FN89 following up on the fitness thing. Didn't even think of having to work with someone. It was a last minute thing. I should have specified what I was looking for. Yeah, you're welcome, FN. I mean, again, it's all about, in advance, go in and have a plan. And gang, like, if you ever get to come to one of my talks where I'm talking about portraits and that kind of stuff, I always talk about have your first shot set up. Know what it is, know what the lighting is, know what the exposure is before you even get there, right? Like practice it somewhere else, because that way, when you get there and your subject's there and you get started, you're basically gonna pick up the camera and you're ready to go, boom. What that does is it builds confidence. It builds confidence from your subject in you, and it builds confidence in you because you're making pictures right away. Things are happening, right? So it's important. All right, gang, so it is, there's an interesting one. I haven't heard the LumaPro stuff in a while. Joe, I traded my 3 Vivitar 283s for one LumaPro LP80 based on the review. The old one started leaking in the bag. LumaPro is rock solid. Yeah, I mean, LumaPro stuff is absolutely great, okay? Well, there we go. Pinnacle Pete's backing up what I said. He's been a personal trainer for 45 years. Advertising photos are of him spotting a client in different exercisers. Both trainer and client should be in most of the photos together. So there you go. And the reason for that is, FN, is obviously part of being a personal trainer isn't just showing that you're fit. It's showing about, number one, what can you do for your clients? Number two, it's to try and give your clients, or this trainer's potential clients, sorry, it's to try and give them a sense of what will the experience of working with this guy be like, right? Because just seeing a picture of this guy like really buff, standing there, well, that's actually just intimidating, right? Because the person that's coming to him doesn't look that good. They need help, right? So you want to show him helping someone, etc. That's the idea, okay? All right, gang, listen, it is that time. Thank you all so much. Great night tonight. We got off to a slow start, but my God, you guys came in with some awesome questions. So hope to see you again next week. Next Wednesday, I believe, so the last piece of gear came for today. I believe I'm going to be able to do TogChat in the new studio next week. We're going to try it. I told you guys before, I'm not sure if we're going to have enough bandwidth because I can only get cable internet access, but I've got the maximum that they offer, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. We're going to give it a shot. So now that I have all the gear pieces, I can set it up next week. We're going to try it from there. But anyway it goes, make sure that you're there. And in the meantime, gang, as always, please remember these.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.